Hi everybody, this is my reading and annotations of chapter 36 of The Handmaid's Tale, and just as a reminder, chapter 35 was an introspective chapter where Offred is reacting to all of the different changes in relationships that she's had, both with the commander and Serena Joy with regards to the offer about Nick, and then with Offglen. And in this chapter, because we're in the section called Jezebel's, this is the chapter where the commander takes Offred to Jezebel's. So, I knock on his door, hear his voice, adjust my face, go in. And I've noted here that Offred's retellings of her time spent with the commander often begin with the knock on the door, and you know, there is something fairy tale-esque about that. There's also something about her entering into domains or places, often, you know, this kind of idea of a gothic space even, where she is in control. And then we have here this reference to I adjust my face, that sense that she is playing a different role when she goes into the commander's room, but nevertheless she is playing a role. He's standing by the fireplace. In his hand he's got an almost empty drink. He usually waits till I get here to start on the hard liquor, though I know they have wine with dinner. His face is a little flushed. I try to estimate how many he's had. There's all sorts of stuff here to do with them having what seems to be a kind of quasi normal relationship. She's now got this kind of insider information about him. He usually waits for her to start on the hard liquor. She knows they have wine by dinner. And then we have this female role within the kind of the patriarchy, where she has to estimate, she has to guess what mood he's in. Greetings, he says. How is the fair little one this evening? A few, I can tell by the elaborateness of his smile, of the smile he composes and aims. He's in the courtly phase. So courtly love, often kind of linked to the medieval time or the Renaissance, this idea where women are placed on a pedestal as objects to be admired and honoured, and so we have this kind of play acting that he is involved in. He calls her his fair little one, and we have this kind of sense that she's now aware of his of his changing moods, and again she has that kind of knowledge of their relationship. I'm fine, I say. Up for a little excitement? Pardon, I say. Behind this act of his, I sense embarrassment, an uncertainty about how far he can go with me and in what direction. And so we have a sense here of he is acting behind this act, but then she thinks that he's embarrassed or uncertain, perhaps behaving a little bit like a kind of shy schoolboy. Actually, what we sense really is going on here is that he's lording his power over her. Tonight, I have a little surprise for you, he says. He laughs. It's more like a snigger, very childish again, very schoolboy-esque, that idea of kind of an in-joke. I notice that everything this evening is little. He wishes to diminish, so he wishes to lessen, to reduce things, myself included, including her. Something you'll like. What might she like, and how would he know that? And again we get this kind of smug sense of self-satisfaction. What's that, I say? Chinese checkers? I can take these little liberties, she makes a joke. He appears to enjoy them, especially after a couple of jokes. He prefers me frivolous, and again that sense that she is complicit in this play acting, in this role that he enjoys her being. So he prefers me frivolous, and so she behaves in that way. Something better, he says, attempting to be tantalizing or flirtatious. I can hardly wait. Good, he says. He goes to his desk, fumbles with a drawer. Then he comes towards me, one hand behind his back. And again, this moment is a moment of kind of humour and jocularity between them. But as with everything in Gilead, there is this sinister undertone. Guess, he says. Animal, vegetable, or mineral? And again, her role here is to be playing the game with him, to appear light-hearted, joyful, to appear entertained by him. Oh, animal, he says, with mock gravity. Definitely animal, I'd say. He brings his hand out from behind his back. He's holding a handful, it seems, of feathers, mauve and pink. And this is the costume that he gives her to... you can see what I've written here. I must have been so shocked at my English teacher when I was in year 12 using this word tart. He turns this costume that he gives her is a disguise of a prostitute, and we'll get into the kind of symbolism of that as we read the rest of this chapter. Now he shakes this out. It's a garment, apparently for a woman. There are cups for the breasts covered in purple sequins. The sequins are tiny stars. The feathers are around the thigh holes and along the top. So I wasn't that wrong about the girdle after all. And so this is a kind of a burlesque costume of a kind of high class stripper maybe in pre-Gilead's. If this costume, this that he's putting in her, is designed to attract attention, it's designed to reveal, it's designed to accentuate and highlight every part, every essential part of the female body. And that's then a total inversion from her uniform as a handmaid, which is designed to hide the female body. And so we have just this this kind of, he's dressing her just as Gilead dresses her, but we have this kind of total inversion of it. I wonder where he found it. All such clothing was supposed to have been destroyed. And of course we have this irony here, not only because we know that this commander is particularly high ranking in Gilead, we suspect that he's a member of the sons of Jacob, but also there is this kind of this sort of sense of this second wave feminism, with there being offence by feminists at this sort of clothing as well. I remember seeing that on television in news clips filmed in one city after another. In New York it was called the Manhattan Cleanup. There were bonfires in Times Square, crowds chanting around them, women throwing their arms up thankfully in the air when they left the cameras on, clean-cut, stony-faced young men tossing things into the flames, armfuls of silks and nylons, fake fur, lime green, red, violet, black satin, gold lame glittering. And we have this lovely kind of visual image that Offred gives us of the kind of rainbow technicolor of the pre-Gilead world, where Gilead seems to be very muted and very monotone. So lime green, red, violet, black satin, gold lame, glittering silver, bikini underpants, see-through brassieres with pink satin hearts sewn onto cover the nipples. The manufacturers, the importers, the salesmen down on their knees, repenting in public, conical hats like dunce hats on their heads, shame printed on them. We have this kind of again this public ritualized act of obedience that's linked to religious kind of fervour. We also have this Victorian style punishment, so the dunce hats given to Victorian schoolboys, but this time it's the dunce, which is all about being kind of stupid, is replaced with shame. But some items must have survived the burning. They couldn't possibly have got it all. He must have come by this in the same way he came by the magazines, not honestly. So that's a reference to the black market. It reeks of black markets. It's not new. It's been worn before. The cloth under the arms is crumpled, slightly stained, with some other woman's sweat. And here again, we just have that reminder that of this sense of doubling. Now, we don't think necessarily that this is the previous handmaid, the one that hung herself in Offred's room, that's worn this, but there is this sense that this has been worn before, and we don't know, you know, it's been worn before by other women for the same purpose that Offred is about to be used. I had to guess the size, he says. I hope it fits. You expect me to put that on? I say. My voice sounds prudish, disapproving. And of course, there's again a level of irony here. This is the Gilead in her head. The world has changed so much for Offred that now she couldn't see herself wearing this. Still, there's something attractive in the idea. I've never worn anything remotely like this, so glittering and theatrical. And that's what it must be, an old theatre costume, or something from a vanished nightclub act. The closest I'd ever come were bathing suits and a camisole set, pink lace that Luke bought me once. There's an enticement in this thing. It carries with it the childish allure of dressing up. It would be so flaunting, such a sneer at the aunts, so sinful, so free. Freedom, like everything else, is relative. And Offred, just that, again, that very perceptive wisdom that she has. So she sees this change of costume, this change of uniform, as being something that she can do that is rebellious and, you know, sticking it to the aunts. But she recognises that this freedom is relative and it is limited. She is handing, you know, she's taking one costume and swapping it for another costume, which is another role that she has to play in the commander's world, in the patriarchy that is Gilead. Well, I say, not wishing to seem too eager, I want him to feel I'm doing him a favour. Now we've come to it. His deep down real desire, and this is what she's been waiting to find out. What does he really want from her? Does he have a pony whip hidden behind the door? Will he produce boots, bend himself or me over the desk? And of course we've got that reference there to Offglen saying that many of the commanders are after kinky sex. It's a disguise, he says. You'll need to paint your face too. I've got the stuff for it. You'll never get in without it. In where? I ask. Tonight I'm taking you out. Out? Such an archaic phrase. Surely there is nowhere anymore where men can take a woman out. And we have this kind of further enticement to her, that she's getting to go somewhere out in Gilead where she would never have been allowed to go in her role as a handmaid. And so we also have that idea. We know she's now a kind of a spy for the resistance. So she's also in a position where she may get more information. Out of here. I know without being told what he's proposing is risky for him, but especially for me. But I want to go anyway. I want anything that breaks the monotony, subverts the perceived respectable order of things. So she's admitting her desire for rebellion, but also the boredom, the kind of banal, monotonous existence that she leads. I tell him I don't want him to watch me while I put this thing on. I'm still shy in front of him about my body. He says he will turn his back, and he does so. I take off my shoes and my stockings and my cotton underpants and slide the feathers on under the tent of my dress. This is like a child changing their clothes under their towel on the beach. And we have this kind of, this sort of farcical illusion of respectability in him dressing her up as a whore and then taking her out to what is essentially a brothel. I take off the dress itself, slip the thin sequined straps over my shoulders. There are shoes too, mauve ones, with absurdly high heels. Nothing quite fits. The shoes are a little too big, the waist on the costume is too tight, but it'll do. There, I say. He turns around. I feel stupid. I want to see myself in a mirror, and this sense again of kind of being placed into something that's so foreign to her. Charming, he says. Now for the face. All he has is a lipstick, old and runny and smelling of artificial grapes, some eyeliner and mascara. No eyeshadow, no blusher. For a moment I think I won't remember how to do any of this, and my first try with the eyeliner leaves me with a smudged black lid, as if I've been in a fight, but I wipe it off with the vegetable oil hand lotion and try again. I rub some of the lipstick along my cheekbones, blending it. While I do all this, he holds a large silver-backed hand mirror for me. I recognise it as Serena Joy's. He must have borrowed it from her room. And again, as Offred kind of exchanges one version of herself for another, we have all of these kind of darker undertones here. So this borrowing of Serena Joy's mirror, to what extent does she know what he's participating in? Nothing can be done about my hair. Terrific, he says. By this time he's quite excited, and again we have that kind of the sexual connotations here. It's as if we're dressing for a party, and he goes to the cupboard, gets out a cloak with a hood. It's light blue, the colour for wives. This too must be Serena Joy's. And so again we have a level of irony here. In order to get her out of the house and through the streets of Gilead before they go to wherever they're going, she can't clearly be dressed in a burlesque costume. So she's borrowing one of Serena Joy's wives' cloaks. And so we have this layering of disguises, and then we have her as a whore, so a handmaid dressed as a whore who is disguised as a wife. Pull the hood down over your face. Try not to smear the makeup, because you wouldn't want any evidence on the cloak that Serena Joy could find. It's for getting through the checkpoints. What about my pass? I say. Don't worry about that, he says. I've got one for you. And so we set out. And again, we have this kind of doubling. This pass that he's created for her reminds us of the pass that Luke had created for their escape. That was an escape story. This is an escape story of sorts, and so she's playing a different role here. But again, that whole idea that her past and her identity and who she is and how she's dressed become these things that are easily to be changed. We glide through the darkening streets. The commander has hold of my right hand as if we're teenagers at the movies. I clutch the sky blue cape tightly around me, as a good wife should. Through the tunnel made by the hood, I can see the back of Nick's head. His hat is on straight. He is sitting up straight. His neck is straight. He is all very straight. And we have this kind of tension that's with Nick's character. We've had this unspoken attraction between the two of them since the kiss that they had when Offred snuck down into the sitting room to steal something. His posture disapproves of me, or am I imagining it? Does he know what I've got on under this cloak? Did he procure it? So she questions his complicity. To what extent is he aware of what the commander has planned? And if so, does this make him angry or lustful or envious or anything at all? We do have something in common. Both of us are supposed to be invisible. Both of us are functionaries. And so as she assumes that he's being judgmental of her, she also recognises that they're both utilities in Gilead, and therefore, to a certain extent, there is no choice. I wonder if he knows this. When he opened the door of the car for the commander, and by extension for me, I tried to catch his eye, make him look at me, but he acted as if he didn't see me, which of course is the role that Nick no doubt must play this evening. Why not? It's a soft job for him, running little errands, doing little favours. There's no way he'd want to jeopardise it. The checkpoints are no problem. Everything goes smoothly, as the commander said it would, despite the heavy pounding, the pressure in my head. Chicken shit, Moira would say, and she feels that fear, and again it's that kind of that same fear that she had as she went through the checkpoints with Luke. Past the second checkpoint, Nick says, "Here, sir," and the commander says yes. The car pulls over and the commander says, "Now I'll have to ask you to get down on the floor of the car," and he asks her to crouch down on the floor at his feet so that she's completely hidden. "Down," I say. "We have to go through the gateway," he says, as if this means something to me. I tried to ask him where we were going, but he said he wanted it to be a surprise. Wives aren't allowed. And so this gateway that they're about to go through, which we assume is a kind of a gateway out of the kind of the conventional sections of Gilead, because this gateway is where the wives are not allowed to go. And so again we have this idea that this is a moment of transition. She's no longer innocent, she's no longer kind of trapped in the heart of the kind of regime. She's broken those internal borders, but she does it completely subjugated, lying at the feet of her commander, at the foot of power. I flatten myself. The car starts again, and for the next few minutes I see nothing. Under the cloak it's stifling hot. It's a winter cloak, not a cotton summer one. It smells of mothballs. He must have borrowed it from storage, knowing she wouldn't notice. He has considerately moved his feet to give me room. Nevertheless, my forehead is against his shoes, and this is, this kind of real symbol of servitude, of absolute submission. It's a kind of literal and symbolic moment of his power and his subservience to his authority. I have never been this close to his shoes before. They feel hard, unwinking, like the shells of beetles, black, polished, inscrutable. They seem to have nothing to do with feet, and that's again a representation of his power. We pass through another checkpoint. I hear voices, impersonal, deferential, the window rolling electronically down and up for the passes to be shown. This time he won't show mine, the one that's supposed to be mine, as I am no longer in official existence for now. And so, she's hidden in the car at his feet, and she no longer exists. And so we have again this sense of the negation of Offred as a person, as a handmaid, isn't the only negation that you can experience in Gilead. When the car starts, then stops again, the commander is helping me up. We have to be fast, he says. This is a back entrance. You should leave the cloak with Nick. On the hour, as usual, he says to Nick. So this too is something that he's done before. And so, like always with Offred, on the hour as usual, this is something that he's done before. This is the back entrance. It appears that everyone around Offred knows more than her about the workings of Gilead and what goes on. He helps me out of the cloak. The car door is opened. I feel air on my almost bare skin. Remember, all she's doing is wearing this kind of costume, and realise I've been sweating. As I turn to shut the door behind me, I see Nick looking at me through the glass. He sees me now. Is it contempt I read, or indifference? Is this merely what he expected of me? We're in an alley behind a building, red brick and fairly modern. A bank of trash cans is set beside the door, and there's a smell of fried chicken going bad. The commander has a key to the door, which is plain and grey and flush with the wall, I think made of sheet metal. We have this kind of very kind of normal, ordinary description of this building, this kind of almost pre-Gilead, the rubbish bins and chicken going bad. I think it's made of steel. Inside, there's a concrete block corridor lit with fluorescent overhead lights, some kind of functional tunnel. And again, this tunnel that takes her into Jezebel's is another transitional moment. Here, said the commander, he slips around my wrist a tag, purple, on an elastic band, like the tags for airport luggage. And of course, Margaret Atwood, with her her fabulous use of similes, this objectification of her again. She's tagged like an animal, although she's linked here to airport luggage, which we'll talk about. But she's given a tag like a band of ownership, and then she's like luggaged. That whole sense that she is, this sense of and she is an escape, like the luggage is an escape. She enables the commander to escape the regime as much as she gets to go out. And then he says, if anyone asks you, say you're an evening rental. And of course this then is that she is to play the role as a prostitute who's been booked for the evening, and therefore she's unavailable to others. He says, he takes me by the bare upper arm and steers me forward. What I want is a mirror, to see my lipstick, if my lipstick is all right, whether the feathers are too ridiculous, too frowsy, which is scruffy. In this light I must look lurid, so over bright, over kind of sort of clownish. Though it's too late now, idiot, says Moira. And again she hears Moira's voice, because perhaps this is a place where the voice of Aunt Lydia can't reach her because she's kind of outside of the boundaries of Gilead. So there's just a couple of things to note before we finish with this chapter. Not only are they at a place where the wives cannot go, he would not have dressed her up like this if this was a place where handmaids could go. And so all of these people that are in this place are, they're playing roles. And this is a place where it's kind of like an adult playground, similar to what we might consider the kind of Playboy mansions, which is a kind of a male playground. And we'll get into that as we read the next chapter.